industry and its regulators so that they can clean up their act.
My Lord, it's such a pleasure to follow the noble Lord Secker, who really does his homework, and I do advocate the government benches reading his speech in Hansard, just to make sure they've got the full picture. I want to congratulate the noble lady, Baroness Bakewell, for bringing this topic again. When I was thinking about what I might say, I did wonder if I should just print off my speech from 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever. We have debated this issue a lot. There's a strength of feeling here because, and the noble Lord the Minister might say, in his innocence, he might stand up and say, but we're doing more than any other government has ever done on this issue. And that might be true, but unfortunately, the situation has got worse and the government isn't doing enough. Now, we've had some really good briefings on this. The Rivers Trust produced a very good report, and they've said things like, no single stretch of river in England or Northern Ireland is in good overall health. That's shameful. They also say, in England, 85% of river stretches failed to reach good ecological health, and toxic chemicals pollute every stretch of English rivers. What a legacy this government has left us. I mean, this will come up on the doorsteps. I'm going to make sure it does, if I have anything to do with it, and the government will be shamed. We also had a very good briefing from Sustain, and they make the point that the main cause of river pollution is in fact, livestock farming, you know, chickens and things, which is perfectly true, but that doesn't mean that sewage isn't going to be important, because somehow the general public has actually heard the word sewage and will ask questions about it. We've also had a briefing from Windrush against sewage pollution, and they talk about the inadequate monitoring, that there simply isn't enough data to actually know the full picture, and that's something that the government has not taken seriously. And also a freshwater future briefing, and they call for regulation of private water companies. Now, clearly, we're all tired of talking about this, and the government replying in platitudes about how, you know, it's going to be fine. You know, they've done everything anyone possible, and you have not done everything you could possibly do. And I think perhaps even the two noble lords on the front bench know that water regulation has failed. I would be very disappointed if they did not know that basic fact. And I've got all sorts of facts and figures here, but quite honestly, the noble Lord Prem has done all the facts and figures. So I'm going to try to cut those bits out of my speech. Thank you. So I think it's time that all politicians, all political parties, question and reject their ideological belief in water privatisation. It has failed. And once you're free of that ideological sort of straitjacket, then when the water companies say, we will go bankrupt if you don't let us raise the average water bills by £150 a year, you can say, not a problem. You know, we can take you over. That's fine, you fail, and we'll buy you for 50p or whatever. The water companies had the money, the public money, to invest, and instead they paid it out in dividends. So either they can do what they were paid to do already, or they can go bankrupt, and, as I say, we can buy them. I mean, an even better solution is put forward by the organisation, the charity We Own It, and they suggest that instead of these stupid paltry fines that the water companies keep getting thrown at them, which they pay quite happily because they don't care. It's not much money. What we could do is take shares from them every time and be quite strict and be tough about it. And then, of course, you know, we'd have them in no time. So the predicted £150 a year rise, which they in bills, which they are insulting us with at the moment, what they are saying is that they need it to invest over the next 27 years. But that 57 billion that the government is offering is actually the same amount of money that those water companies have paid to shareholders in the previous 27 years. So where is the guarantee that any money we give to these water companies is actually going to be spent on the things that we care about? And I would argue we have absolutely no guarantee. Of course, Ofwat has failed. The Environmental Agency has, and I feel very sad about that, the Environment Agency has failed. And instead of our regulators acting years ago to clamp down on CEO bonuses and shareholder dividends, they're still going to private dinner clubs with the water industry to discuss how to quell the public anger at sewage and the rising bills. Now, as I said, there will be anger at the next general election over this. The cost of living is going to be the major concern, but sewage will come up. And I've had quite a lot of people saying to me, oh, we should just, take these CEOs to court, all the top execs, take them to court, throw them in jail, and forget about them, basically. Now, I'm not a big fan of putting people into prison anyway, but I think what we should do with all these top execs is to actually give them community service. They should be out there on the riverbanks, on the beaches, clearing up the mess that they've made. I mean, a couple of years of doing that, and I think possibly other CEOs would learn that you actually can't carry on polluting our natural resources in that way. I'm going to cut huge chunks out now, which I'm sure everybody is going to be very happy about. Now, local campaigners in West Oxfordshire have worked with the District Council to ensure that planning applications have conditions set for Thames Water to upgrade illegal sewage systems before accepting the occupancy of new housing. And the effectiveness of the conditions is being tested with the first examples underway. And the Environment Agency has been prodded into action, and on one application of 1,450 houses north of Oxford, it has said clearly that the Oxford Sewage Works is operating illegally and has failed to upgrade despite the water company having had the money years ago. Now, I don't want there to be a shortage of housing. I don't want us to stop building new housing, but what I do want to stop is our polluting some very, very precious ecosystems. So this same rule that I've just talked about would apply to any new housing served by the Oxford Sewage Works and every other illegally operating sewage works in the country. It will stop a new deluge of sewage being dumped into local rivers due to the overloaded system. So I want to ask the Minister, how many sewage works around the country are currently operating illegally and don't have the capacity to handle the existing levels of sewage? This is a very, very important question. And if we don't have the data on that, we really ought to. And so perhaps the Noble Lord the Minister could write to me and write to everybody about that, because it is an absolutely crucial question. You can't fix a problem if you don't know what it is and how big it is. And lastly, can the Minister explain how water companies that are blocking new housing from being occupied and have never invested the money given from them to produce a modern sewage system can now be expected to do so? We have let the water companies run rampant over our very precious land and rivers, waterways, all sorts of ecosystems, and it's time we stopped them.
My Lords, it is a pleasure